Hi friends, welcome to my channel. Love you guys. Thanks for coming on over today and seeing what I'm working on. Today's video, I'm going to show you my mini glue book for August of 2021. And this month's theme is vintage. As I've said before, if you've watched my videos, I'm making a little glue book about this size. It's like a 4x6-ish. These books aren't perfectly sized to match each other. They're not. But I'm making a small one of these every month just to challenge myself. And some of my books have themes. Some don't. Some are just whatever I want to glue. And they turn out great. It's really fun. But I like this size. And yeah, this is my August glue book. And the theme on this one is vintage, or vintage looking, because I don't have a lot of really old things. So I'm going to show you what I've got here. First of all, it's just the closure is a couple pieces of fabric that I sewed together and then just put a stitch down the middle just to give it a little more integrity. But that's just a wraparound closure. The cover has a background paper from Victoria Design. It's her botanical journal kit, and I try not to use too many journal kit things, and I don't have that many. This is one of the only ones I've ever bought, but this is also from that kit, and she does have some beautiful things. I try to use what I have on hand. Also, these corners right here are from one of my dad's old photo albums that I took apart, and I transferred all of his pictures into a better album so that it would stand the test of time more. His album was starting to fall apart, and I'll show you that someday because it's pretty cool. Okay, some lace, and this right here is from Tim Holtz. It was the butterfly and floral combo pack. Again, things I have, I don't buy much, but I tend to keep around. So let's get inside and see what I ended up with. Let's move this over just a little bit. So here is I've had a lot of things that I've had for a while, and that's part of the reason why I went with a vintage, is because some of my vintage stuff I haven't touched in a while, and vintage is kind of where I got my start, with junk journaling and stuff. But here is a postcard from that botanical kit. Here is a free printable, and I tell you, the free printables that I have in here, a lot of them are from Free Pretty Things for You, and also the Graphics Fairy. You can find a lot of free printables from those two sites alone. You really don't need to spend any money to do that. If you have a printer that's, halfway decent. I had an old printer, then it did a great job. Honestly, the quality of the papers that came out was fine. So, and then this right here, an old birthday journal book, like a calendar thing, and it was all vintagey. This is part of the Tim Holtz thing. Yeah, you'll see a lot of this kind of stuff in here. Some images and just some basic glue book theory here, just kind of slapping down things from that looked glue booky vintage type stuff. This right here doesn't really match, but it kind of gives it a pop of color in the middle of the page. I don't know. My book, my rules, which is no rules. Here's a little poem from an older book. I wouldn't say vintage. I don't think it was more than, 30 years old, but I added a few little stamps and some fun gold ribbon. A little vintage type of picture of a little girl. I think that was from, yeah, that was probably a free printable from Free Pretty Things for You as well, with some fabric and another printable just on a interesting colored background. Somerset Studio. If you can get your hands on some old Somerset Studio magazines, by all means get them, or treat yourself sometime, your birthday, or just because they are so fun, and so many different images and beautiful things that you can find in those books alone. And there's just some other things to go with it. Here's a card and a free printable from somewhere. I don't remember where, but I sewed it onto a piece of parchment paper that has a little bit of coffee dye on it. Not a lot, but a little. And I was going to make a belly band out of it using the double hole method, but I decided not to because we can change our mind. It's our book. We can do what we want. It's our creative, whatever we want to do. This was a beautiful piece of a card, and it says, "Dear Joy." So this was actually to somebody, and there's some cool writing on it. This is from a card, I believe. So that's just an image. And this right here was a die cut strip from my friend Gretchen. So thank you, Gretchen. And I filmed this one. And just some threads and stuff. And this is an image from a book I tore apart, some old stamps and some tickets that I made. An really easy little project you can do, and on some fabric. 2 ovals next to each other. No worries. My book, my rules, which are no rules. And washi tape. I think I had a discussion about this washi tape. It doesn't quite come off very well. But yeah, coffee stained page. Again, from the Botanical Journal Kit from Victoria Design, this and this. I was going to use it for something else, and it just didn't quite work. So it's ending up in all kinds of places in my work. So you'll see it here and there. I think I filmed this one, and here's a beautiful butterfly from a friend of mine. She gave me a whole box. Laura, thank you very much, Laura. And just another free printable. I think this one was off Instagram. I couldn't even tell you the resource now, but yeah. And as you can see, it's a little fuzzy. So it's made to be smaller. So sometimes my printables, I have to make sure that it's the right size. And I actually glued on a dried leaf from my yard. And this I filmed. So fun. Just another Somerset Studio magazine image with some dictionary paper and some cool wrapping type, I don't know what, packaging? I don't know what to call it. Yeah, it's really cool though. And over here I have a fabric cluster. I have a whole little stash of fabric clusters. So one thing about fabric clusters, they make your books a little bulky. So use them sparingly. Unfortunately, I have a whole container full of these things because I went on a kick. You know how you get on a kick? Yeah, but they're so pretty when they're in here. Aren't they nice? It just makes a nice soft look to it. And here's another card. Yeah, it was going to be a tuck spot, but it wasn't quite sticking in there. And so I added this card, but I also used a paper clip too. So, and it's a little poem. The pedigree of honey does not concern the bee. A clover any time to him is aristocracy. And some stamping on that. So yep, just kind of tuck it all in there. It's a little image from a book, a really sweet little book about it's just a sweet little book. Okay, so yeah, she's cute, and put some fabric with it. And this fabric actually is from this house when we moved in. So that might be kind of vintage because our house was built in 1959, and I don't know how old this was. I suppose it wasn't too stained, so maybe it wasn't as old as the house, but it's still pretty cool that it was part of my house. And here you'll see a little repeat of the fabric. You'll see that throughout. This was one of my collage type, just kind of snippet things. And I just made a whole bunch of those. But this pearl, this flower, which I love the look of it, but it's pretty. It's a pretty big one. You can see how it sticks up. And that's part of the reason why this book is a little chunky. Things like this. But I wanted to use it. And it's a junk journal, so it doesn't matter if it sticks out with the alligator mouth a little bit. This is masterboard type project. That was a lot of fun. You use different kinds of text, some washi tape, and different kinds of music, other kinds of book pages, and then you have the whole page out, and then you cut it to tags, or you cut it to journal cards and add an image on the front and decorate it as your book needs. So, you know, if you're going with a color themed journal, you take something of that color sort of thing. So I made a few of these, and just for this, and this is really cool ledger. This was vintage. It's an old John Deere Farmer's Ledger book. But yeah, I made several of these, and this is just a perfect little place for it to set and be part of home. And I like that stripe there too. This is the Somerset Studio Magazine picture. I don't remember the artist's name, so there is that. But it says explore and discover, adventure, destination. And I did some stamping there and just some fabric. And she's just a pretty lady. Over here is a pocket with a cluster. I went a little cluster nuts too, and I have a box full of clusters that I haven't used in a while. So this is one of those, and I have tucked in there another one of those cards made with that masterboard, and this rose is a free printable from Pretty Things For You, another wonderful site to get free vintage images. They are very generous with they share all of these beautiful things. I have so many images on my computer that need to be transferred to the cloud, because one of these days my computer is going to die, because it's kind of an old one in computer, you know, standards. The back of this is part of that calendar birthday book too. Oh, and one more thing about this rose, I actually printed it onto some fibrous vellum type paper. It was almost like the Kleenex texture, and I don't have mulberry paper, that's what they call it, and it turned out really pretty. So that was a fun thing to do. Tim Holtz bingo card that I made into a journaling spot right there. And some stickers, and here's more of that fabric, just a little cluster and a book page kind of a thing to make the corner tuck. And that's the middle of my book. This is only one signature. Like the lady sewing, these are images from that book. And for him, I made some little tiny envelopes and had some stamps that I added to this, and a ticket and this printable ticket. And yeah, it's like he's been gone. He's been away to Edinburgh, and she misses him, and she tucks away a tag to remember him by. I don't know, I'm making up the story. But this is a fun pocket I got from Tuesday Morning, and just added her picture and this little tag in there. And it fits right inside this little tuck right here, maybe. I can get things to behave. There we go. Okay, and this was a masterboard that I made. And I think I have an old video of this, and using up some scraps, add some stamping and some color and washi tape, and just had a lot of fun with this project. And I added a little vintage image of this little girl. Another collage masterboard kind of thing that I took apart and created an envelope with. And this one I actually have some sewing, and my sewing machine doesn't have a lot of stitches, but it does have this scallop edge stitch, which makes a really nice addition. You can really, it just pops a little bit, makes it a little more dainty. So, and in here is another one of those cards made from the masterboard and the rose. And that page is pretty chunky thick, because I've got this envelope, that flip, and then I come over here and I've got this tag too. So it's just, again, a little bit chunky, but it's okay. So here's a bird from one of my newer purchases. It's a Songbirds book, but I vintaged it up with coffee dye, coffee dye and Distress ink around the edge. And yeah, just put the word soar there. Got my little stamps out, and here's more of the fabric. And then on here, there was a feather in my yard, and I picked it up and I went, what can I use this for? And I've had it for a little while. It's like, I have a bird, I need the feather. So, and then the feather's acting like a quill. So I tried to write this with that, but it didn't quite work. I don't know how they did that back in the day, how they made feathers really work to write. But I plopped some ink on here just to make it look like I was trying to write. So they kind of go together, you know, like this is what that wrote, you know, and this is a really antique. But I think they used special quills, maybe peacock feathers or a specialized feather, and they knew how to nib it somehow. But that'd be an interesting study to find out how they actually drew with quills. Here's another thing that makes my book chunky. It's a little sewn in tip out and a very sweet little image. And here's a verse, and it says, I sought my soul, but my soul I could not see. I sought my God, but my God eluded me. I sought my brother, and I found all three. Isn't that a cute little verse? It says old verse. It doesn't say from who or when, but I thought it was sweet. And then this beautiful image from an old vintage card. That actually was a vintage card. Some washi tape, and I really like this. This is just, you know, what's left over from a napkin. I added some distress ink, and what a cute and very subtle but excellent accent to go behind these flowers. Or it'd be great on any kind of a background. So mixed media, whatever, right? Another image from that book on some just grunched up paper and washi tape. This was kind of fun. It is just a printable, but it's buttons, the little button card. Remember those button cards? How fun was that? So a friend, Laura, gave me a stamp that was a frame. So I was playing with this green paper because it's just green. You know, I've got a thing about my bold colored papers. I'm trying to work them into my project somehow. So I grunged it up and I used that stamp, and it just little fabric here and then a button. I mean, how fun. And then just vintage around the edge, just collage type things around the edges. This is a pretty plain page, but I used this is a vintage, it is vintage for reals, dictionary page. This is an image from, let me think, Shabby Dabby Doodah, one of her free printables, and some washi tape. And I left it kind of plain because I'm getting to the back going, this thing's getting pretty thick and clunky. So I, you know, just keep it flat for a moment. More from the printable of Victoria Design, the Botanical Journal Kit. Added some lace and cut out a bird. And here is a very fun and old looking advertisement for a stove. I found a book at a garage sale, and it's called The Victorian Kitchen, and it's pictures of old kitchen appliances and tools, and the pages were white, so I did have to coffee dye it and stain it to make it look vintage, but it has the whole advertisement paragraph and where it was made, and I think they're fun. So that's going to be a fun book to go through and use in vintage things or whatever I want. And then just collage in the background with some washi tape. This was a snippet roll that I made, and just kept going and going, and, you know, around, and I added some words to it. And I had some little die cuts from, I don't even know, I've had them for a long time, and these are just little flowers. They were very plain pink. And so I stamped them with a letter stamp. You know, you could use whatever you want. That's just what I chose. And just added some not words, but just a few more stamping on here, and added another die cut. But otherwise it was just ready to go, and I just cut it to size, and there's my page. So snippet rolls are really nice to have, and different sizes of snippet rolls. I have some thin ones that can be used for borders or tucks or corners or belly bands, but then I made one about this size, and a lot of scraps. Is a great way to use up scraps, and you can make them however you want. And then for this one, it was kind of a vintage theme with a little bit of pink in it, and then you add what you want it to make, you want it to go with it, whatever journal you are working with. So snippet rolls, really versatile and a great use of scraps, and we always like that. So she's another image from that one book with all those faces on fabric that I sewed, and with some washi tape and some flower petal stickers. And my last 2 pages, she's saying hello, even though it's at the end of the book, but maybe she's saying hello to the little girl in the front of the book. Maybe, huh? And this book doesn't have, a storyline, but the people in here, you could say that the people have some sort of a storyline throughout. Maybe, I don't know, use your imagination. And the more I'm looking through the book, the more I'm thinking, maybe there is a story here that I'm, that's unfolding. Maybe this was a card that somebody gave to her, I don't know. Just being creative there. But this is a Somerset Studio magazine picture, and this is some mesh and paper towel and just stamped paper. I mean, just such a mishmash of things that you can use for glue booking, and to make things vintage, just add a little ink and you're good to go. This was from a vintage card, and I have a whole bunch of these pretty flowers, and as Pam at the Paper Outpost says, use up your pretties, don't save them. So that's what I was doing in here. Paper towel dyed pink on just a book page, which is the back cover, and there it is. That's what's left of it. It is sticking out, and that's because of all the thickness on the pages. It kind of pushed it out, but I like how it feels. I like how it looks. There's enough few things flipping out the edges that make it a little more vintagey and a little more pretty. And so yeah, that is my vintage mini glue book, and for 2021 of August. And I like how it turned out. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. I hope that gives you some inspiration of what you can do with your scraps, or if you want to make a glue book but you don't want to commit to something very big, make yourself a 4x6. I mean, just a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, or you could staple it. Something small like this you can really get done with this in not a huge amount of time. So yeah, I make one of these a month, and it's been going well. I'm feeling good about my progress on this little project I gave myself. So hopefully gives you something to think about and something to do. And I love you guys. Thanks again for coming on over. Take care, and as always, friends, God bless. Bye-bye.